If I give a donation and I immediately get back an email that's automated through Blackbaud that says, thank you so much for your donation, were you thanked? You know, technically, yes. Do you feel thanked? Absolutely not. So I think, yes, we can have the ROI, but then you get into a space of, is it the right thing to do? You know, a lot of companies will send out swag, kind of whatever, we'll send these people swag. Do they think about the ROI of that t-shirt? Probably not. They probably just think it's a good thing to do. The ROI of sending a thank you note, everybody should be sending thank you notes, especially nonprofits, especially for higher ticket value items, you know, when you buy a car, whatever it might be. You know, this ROI discussion, I think, has gotten to a point of insanity, especially because people pick and choose very willy-nilly what deserves an ROI discussion. I think everybody genuinely needs to feel thanked. I really do. I I think it's a, you know, depending on the culture, and I think North America, United States being the worst at this, is we need to return to a state of gratitude where we thank people for the things they do. And I know a handwritten note through handwritten is not an actual thank you, but it's better than the alternative of no thank you at all.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
I'm excited to have David Wachs on today's show because he's innovating in the area of direct mail as well with Handwrytten. So, David, why don't you give us the elevator pitch for Handwrytten?
Sure. Handwrytten was founded in 2014. We are the out of my own need for a service like it. So prior to Handwrytten, I ran a text messaging platform. I was fortunate enough to sell that, and I wanted to send handwritten notes out to my customers and my employees, and I sat down to write them. And quickly I ran out of ink, or I ran out of stamps, or I screwed up the writing and I had to write it again. So I thought there has to be a better way, and that's where Handwrytten came from. So now, what is Handwrytten? Handwrytten is the largest provider of automated handwriting solutions in the world. We build our own robots. We have 175 robots here in Tempe, Arizona. They're custom designed. We build them a couple feet from my office here. And each robot holds a real pen, a Pilot G2 ballpoint pen. And we write out notes at scale for online brands, a lot of nonprofits, retailers, luxury brands, veterinarian clinics, realtors, and more. We do about 20,000 pieces a day. So certainly not the million messages a day I was doing at my text messaging company, but you know, handwritten notes kind of fit in a different niche. So yeah, so that's kind of Handwrytten. We're about 35 people that complement the 175 robots, and yeah, that's kind of the story on us.
Cool. Well, obviously, with the evolution of fonts and variable digital printing, you know, folks have been sort of attempting to mimic handwritten with sort of fake handwritten for years, right? And of course, it never passes the smell test, because as soon as the person takes the thing and takes a look at it, they're like, "Oh yeah, this is laser," right?
100%. Yeah.
So there's something special, right, about that extra feel. It gives you probably more flexibility from a paper perspective. Maybe you can use a more parchment-y style paper, but you know, I'd love to understand a little bit more about like that extra cost versus that extra impact, like how people should think that through, right? Because they're basically saying to themselves, "Oh yeah, I can sort of simulate the handwritten. I don't need a robot with a ballpoint pen to do it." But you know,
Yeah.
how should they think through that decision-making process of that extra value that you get when you do a handwritten piece?
I think those fonts, at least to me, and you know, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, it doesn't pass the sniff test. And in fact, it creates a poor brand experience, because then you're seen as a company that's just copping out or doing the cheapest way. With handwritten, it really is a manufactured product. So step one, we print your card, and we print it on high quality, to your point, vellum cardstock. So it's got a toothy, rough cut to it, and it feels premium. And then we feed those cards, those thick 120-pound cardstock cards, into our robots, and they're written. And the writing, I invite everybody to visit our website, handwrytten.com, handwrytten.com, to check out the handwriting styles or even request free samples, so you can see for yourself if it passes the sniff test. And it certainly passes the smudge test, but does it look real? And I would say yes, it does. We vary the characters, so two O's look different, two A's look different, two O's together. It's what's called a ligature combination. So how do those O's connect in words like loopy or tooth or something like that? Two T's, do you cross them with one crossbar or two when you have two T's together? We take all that into account. We vary the left margin ever so slightly, so it's not like you're writing on a hard edge of a page. It jitters in and out, but by the pico, not like by the inch. It doesn't look overly exaggerated.
Yeah.
We vary the line spacing, same thing. You don't want to make it look like you wrote straight on hard lined paper across the page. So we vary the line spacing by the pico, 0.72, what is it, 72 points in an inch. So, a couple points here or there. We vary we warp the text ever so slightly so that it looks like you're trying very hard to write across a page straight, but you kind of went off ever so slightly, then came back on. All these things to try to make it look super authentic. And I would say, unless you're a writing specialist or you're a marketing person that's aware of handwritten, you won't know. If I sent you one of these cards and I said, was this note written by a robot? Of course you're going to say, let me check, let me do it, look, really. But if I just send you a card and I say, did you receive my card? You'll say, oh, yes, I did. Thank you so much. Or more often than not, I won't have to ask you, because you will send me an email or a phone call back saying, thanks so much for the card, before I did that. So I think it's about, and even if they do realize that it's fake, at least you did something different. You didn't laser print, you didn't send them something cheap. You went through this extra effort to try to stand out, and I think people appreciate that. Obviously, the number one choice is always sitting down and writing out that handwritten card yourself, but as a matter of scale, it's really impossible to do that. So the options are having a bunch of interns do it, to which I say, is that any better than having robots do it? It's still arm's length,
Yeah.
and we try to get past that. So that's why people are really finding value in it. Of course, it's more expensive than a printed piece, right? Like, printing is what we do before we have our cup of coffee. We have to print them. Then the day goes and we have to feed in the robots and stuff it and all the rest, and put a real stamp on it. So it is a process. However, we see in our testing and from the very little information we get from clients, they see about a 7 times greater ROI versus print. The calls to action are called upon 27 times more than print. But when you divide that for the additional cost, and it is 3 to 4 times more expensive than print, then that's how you get to the 7 times greater ROI.
Right.
And then, we did a whole survey of consumers saying, do you feel appreciated by brands? We did a blind survey of 2,000 consumers. We said, do you feel appreciated by brands? Lo and behold, everybody said, no, we're not appreciated by brands. And then we said, well, what would make you feel appreciated? And people said, handwritten notes would, obviously. And then we said, if you feel appreciated by a brand, what would you do? And they would buy more frequently, buy higher value items, refer more, all the stuff, all the good stuff. So, and that research piece is also available on our website. So I think I gave you a long answer to a short question, but You know, it's not print, it's not laser print, it's not a font. There's way more that goes into it. There's indentations on the on some of the cards, not all. It doesn't always, just like if you were to write on a card, you might not indent it, but it does travel along that bumpy card surface, and you notice that. So there's really a lot into it, and people pick up on all that.
Sure. So one thing obviously one needs to do if one's going to consider any kind of a more premium direct mail piece is think about one's segments, right?
Yeah,
Because even if you do get a higher response rate, ROI calculations relate to, value of the customer or donation
yeah.
level or lifetime customer value of donations that come out of that individual, whatever it is. So it's not as simple as just saying, oh yeah, I'll just take my whole list and I'm going to just give that over to to handwritten and say mail this one. I would imagine a lot of folks are sort of thinking the same way that we might when we're doing direct mail for clients, like, oh, this one's so premium, this customer's so premium, I would consider handwritten or a dimensional mail piece or something, higher end, maybe even a premium item that would get mailed, right? Something that
Well, yes,
that moves you to the next level.
yes and no. I think now we get into a philosophical discussion um, of where we are in society. So this becomes a bigger discussion because if I choose you and your e-com services from your e-com company or your Giving Forward or your vitamin company, if I choose you from the millions of other vitamin, no offense, I mean, I'm sure you have a great product, but the fact is everybody has, because of the internet, everybody has a million vitamin companies, a million nonprofits, a million this, a million that. If they don't have it, they could start it. They could go to Alibaba or whatever. They can outsource to India. The fact that they chose you, I think people need to return to a gratitude mindset. I think I get this question all the time. What's the ROI? What's the ROI? There is ROI. I will say that. However, now I'll get argumentative and I'll say, if you're asking for ROI on a thank you, what does that mean? I mean, you should be saying thank you in genuine ways. And I think there's a difference between feeling thanked and being thanked. So let me explain what I mean there. If I give a donation and maybe you use Blackbaud Razor's Edge as your donation platform or whatever. If I give a donation and I immediately get back an email that's automated through Blackbaud that says, thank you so much for your donation, were you thanked? You know, technically, yes. Do you feel thanked? Absolutely not. So I think, yes, we can have the ROI, but then you get into a space of, is it the right thing to do? You know, a lot of companies will send out swag, kind of whatever, we'll send these people swag. Do they think about the ROI of that t-shirt? Probably not. They probably just think it's a good thing to do. The ROI of sending a thank you note, everybody should be sending thank you notes, especially nonprofits, especially for higher ticket value items, you know, when you buy a car, whatever it might be. You know, this ROI discussion, I think, has gotten to a point of insanity, especially because people pick and choose very willy-nilly what deserves an ROI discussion. I think everybody genuinely needs to feel thanked. I really do. I I think it's a, you know, depending on the culture, and I think North America, United States being the worst at this, is we need to return to a state of gratitude where we thank people for the things they do. And I know a handwritten note through handwritten is not an actual thank you, but it's better than the alternative of no thank you at all.
Well,
You
you won't get
know,
an argue. You won't get argument from me on thank you based,
yeah.
handwritten. So I was more thinking about for prospecting purposes, right? For the
Prospecting is
person.
another
Yeah.
story. Yeah, prospecting is expensive. And I'll be the first person to tell you that handwritten notes might not be the best route because it is expensive. However, if you're, you know, like we have realtors that do it, okay, you know, you sell a house, you're going to make $30,000 commission or whatever. There it makes sense. But for a lot of people, no, it doesn't make sense. And you know, I think to your point, everything has its place. And handwritten notes, we're really a company of gratitude, not a company of outreach. We are outreach, but not prospecting outreach.
Yeah, right. Right. The
On my rant, but I get a lot of questions of, oh, I don't know, thank you note. And I'm like, let's take a step back here and
right.
think, you know, what are you really asking? But I get you.
Yeah,
100%.
actually, but I guess we can take it another layer further, right? From the perspective of to what level is the message curated based on,
Yeah,
perhaps once everybody should rise to the level of getting thanked,
yeah,
and the thank you should at least somewhat seem authentic as a result of them taking the extra care to send a handwritten
yeah,
note, right? But then the question becomes whether or not a human and or an AI, right, thought to customize the message to the individual
yeah,
based on what either an individual or an AI might know about that person and that person's history or likes or dislikes, around their interaction with the brand. How much of it did they order? How much did they donate?
yeah.
Were they in attendance at the golf event, last year or not? Are you finding that people are wanting to do more than just sort of a mail merge style messaging in the
Yeah.
notes than they did in the past?
Well, we offer like ChatGPT within our platform, so you could do a one-off note, because quite frankly, I don't trust ChatGPT. So, you can request them, you say, send a note to Kevin for being on his podcast, he'll write a nice thing. But
Yeah.
I like people to always review it. If people want to automate that, they can do it, but I would recommend setting up some approval queue to do that and use a platform like Make or Zapier to do that. We have a great success, to your point, with like post event. We will bulk upload that and we can do a template and include a couple little snippets in there. Or for ecom, we can include the category of the product, not the product name. So if you came to, pick a company, Chanel, and you bought a watch or something, we wouldn't say that's a diamond encrusted whatever their watch, J12 watch or
Then you
whatever.
then you actually break the personal level, right? Because a human would
Yes,
never say that.
humans would never say that. So instead
Exactly.
of saying, whatever, large bezel watch, you would just say, thank you so much for your purchase of your watch. And so you bring it up to that category level.
Right.
We do a lot of that. And then what we'll do is we'll map it to a complementary product. So we'll say, don't know if you had a chance to look out the matching bracelets or anklets or whatever the heck it is. And we'll do something like that. So we're not going fully AI yet. I'm sure that will happen. We're just hesitant to do it because who knows what the robots will say.
Yeah,
But
hallucinations
yeah,
are a problem for sure.
yeah. But I agree with you. It's getting a little scary, but yeah, we are heading down that path.
So are there, we mentioned nonprofits, certainly in luxury goods where the value would be very high, and real estate where the
Yeah,
value would be very high. There's certain sort of no-brainer categories, I think, that
yeah,
people would automatically assume, oh, this is where handwritten comes in handy, right? But
yeah,
are there any others that are sort of non-obvious, right? Where you've had fun
yeah.
studies where a person might say, oh, I would have never thought about using a handwritten or robotically handwritten note for that category.
Yeah, so we do a lot right now in politics, which that is prospecting. We also, believe it or not, we do a lot in end of life for pets. So when the vet comes to your house to put down your pet, it's a sensitive time. They want to send you a thank you note. We have a piano to so any home services,
Hmm.
whether it's solar panels, HVAC, anything like that, they use us for attention. We have a piano tuner that goes to your house, tunes your piano. You only need your piano tuned once a year. So he sends you a handwritten note, thank you for the opportunity to tune your piano. A year later, when he returns to your house to tune your piano again, he often sees that handwritten note still standing up on the piano. So not only is that handwritten note opened, not only is it read, it's put on display on the most prized possession in your house, oftentimes in the most expensive room of your house. When I was growing up, we called that the fancy room. And you can't buy that real estate. Like nobody would ever, when I was in the texting business, nobody would ever take one of my text messages, print it out, and stick it to their piano. But a handwritten note has that magical effect. So it creates these durable impressions that I think are really unique.
Another thing from a sort of logistics and operational perspective, and I'm sort of a marketing mad scientist as I have
Yeah.
in my background, I always try to think about different use cases, and some use cases are sort of more the traditional way that you would think about direct mail, which is, I have my list, I have my custom messages, and then I put them into your manufacturing process, and they're done in a fairly large batch, which maybe you have a minimum, maybe you have
Mhm.
a typical, and maybe you've got a maximum based on production
Capacity.
capability.
Yeah.
But I also think about some of the new players in the category that are starting to build APIs that allow for a one-off, right?
Yeah.
Where, I could literally say, as long as you've got a production line that sort of has a generic template in it, I could hypothetically even do a one-off as long as it didn't, that everything could be done, right?
Yeah.
On a generic thank you card that didn't have my brand on it or whatever. So are you moving into both of those directions where it's batch based and potentially even one-offs that might come in via an API? Let's say I'm at a
Yeah.
trade show, for example, and people are registering at the trade show. I could either wait till the end of the trade show and give you the batch here, the 376 people who registered at my trade show, and then they go out in a batch.
Yeah.
But there might be other scenarios or other instances where maybe based on e-commerce, right? I'd like it to be timely, right? So I'd like it to go out the day after the
Yeah.
person orders that item or whatever. So are there API level connections as well?
Absolutely. We are an API first company. Actually, you can look on Inc. magazine and search handwritten API, and hopefully an article will come up where we talk about how we built ourselves as an API first company. So you do get discounts if you place a big batch order because
Right.
it's operationally more efficient.
Sure.
But you can literally go in through an API, design a card with your image on the front. It could be their product. So if somebody bought that diamond encrusted J12 watch or whatever, there could be a photo of that watch on the front of the card with a message from you on the inside and then the logo of Chanel on the back. So that's all API driven, and we can do that one-offs. That's actually just kind of a step behind the curtain. The engineering work that's been done at Handwrytten over the last 2 years has and is still going on is all about operationally improving that process
Yeah.
so that we're able to handle single orders much more effectively. We used to, if you go to our website, everybody wants, your variety of cards is low. You only have 3 thank you cards and 5 birthday. That was intentional because if you didn't do a custom card, I wanted to group you with another bunch of birthday
Sure.
cards of the same type. That way we could feed them all in the robot at once. Now, if you're a part of our social media, every day you'll get, oh, look at our new card designs, because now we can handle those one-off cards, and now we can offer 20 or 30 birthday cards because we can handle single orders much easier. So
Right.
to your long answer again, yes, we are able to handle API driven, and I think that really differentiates us.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen the part of the reason I invented the Inceptor platform to do the variable digital printing of QR codes unique to the individual on every card
That's
was
tough.
because and we do it, right? We mail millions of pizzas that way, right?
Wow.
But the reason we haven't productized that technology is because when we give it to other people to use, they break it,
Yep. We
right?
actually, we are not doing millions a day. We're doing, up to 20,000 pieces a day, and not all of those have QR codes. Very few have QR codes, but we have implemented the same tracking. And the reason
Yeah,
it took so dang long, we literally just released it 2 weeks ago. The reason it took so dang long is it's so hard.
it is
It's so
hard.
hard to track that unique QR code through the process.
Yeah. No,
Um,
again, the same, it's basically the same functional challenge that you faced in having the picture of that person's product on the card, right? You need to keep everything lined up from a data perspective, right? It's a
yeah.
unique QR code to the individual, and we've actually, we have a different middleware layer that's all about keeping track of the individual and their QR code or codes,
You're
right?
not giving yourself enough credit because it's actually harder than because if I print out that, you know, jewel covered watch card and I have somebody sticking in a robot, at least they'll know, yeah, the message should have something to do with jewel covered watches. But the QR code, they're not going to know, they can't read that with their eyeballs. So
Yeah.
it's way hard, especially if you have 10 of those.
Yeah.
You need the 10th card. It's a very hard issue.
Yeah, no, I know for sure, right? And we do it in both a postcard
Yeah,
and letter environment, right? And
yeah. Kudos to
similarly
you.
to you, right? It's most valuable from a functional perspective when it's a high value prospect, right? Because it really only works when there's a sales team to be, pinged by that
Responding.
CRM to say, oh wow, David scanned that QR code today. I'm going to give him a call tomorrow. I'm not going to do it right now and say, at 2:26 p.m. you
That's
scanned the QR
scary.
code because that's creepy. But it
Yeah,
does turn them into Glengarry leads, right? And so,
yeah,
but it needs to be a high value prospect, right? If it's
100%.
low value, you don't get that much extra value out of the QR code scan, except for the conversion rate improvement, because we can pre-populate the landing page dynamically using a hashed identifier and then eliminate some of the friction on the landing page. So
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how technology in our industry, right, is allowing us to both delight and improve efficiency at the same time, right? I think about yours as really a delighting factor, right? It delights the recipient.
yeah, yeah. That's you're doing a little bit more than we are. Now I'm thinking we got to hash some information and throw it back in the URL. But yeah, no, kudos to you. It is not an easy. That was a very hard thing that took us a lot of time, and it's kind of yeah. I mean, it is a great add-on. I'd love to talk to you about response rates to QR and how that's going. Maybe we talk about that offline or something.
Sure.
But but we just released this. But yeah, it's very interesting, and people now are wanting these robots in their facility, which is another thing. So there's a lot of ways to kind of take this
Yeah.
technology.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing that would scare me about putting your robots in their facilities is how high, how quirky they can be, right? With certain papers, if
Oh
the
yeah,
paper's a little bit thicker,
yeah,
especially if you're first putting it through a variable digital color printer to customize it, and then you're gonna add the
yeah,
writing later, you got a operational detail to deal with.
yeah. You
So,
nailed it. You nailed
yeah.
it.
Um, so any other interesting categories that sort of would be non-obvious for people? And like what are the, now that you've got one-off ability with an API, you know, how do you see your business evolving between the sort of API driven one-off thank you cards and the sort of batched business?
We've always done the one-off. I just don't know if we've ever been profitable at it. And we're finally maybe gaining some economies of scale, a short 10 years in.
Right.
It's hard to say. Most of our business still is batch,
Mm.
fortunately. So people go on our website and place big bulk orders. Now we're offering things like Canadian local postage. So before, if you wanted to send, if you're Canadian, if you're in Toronto and you want to send something to Vancouver, you can use our service and it's going to say Canada and the return address, but it's going to have an American stamp on it. And it's also going to say the word Canada at the bottom of
Right.
the to address. So it's going to be kind of weird. Uh, Now we have a fulfillment strategy to get those locally. So that's kind of our latest new offering. Um, and then some more data field things. So allowing people to include more merge fields in their messages. But overall, the technology is kind of evening out. We don't have a lot new stuff coming down, which I'm fine with. As far as how people are using it, um, it's really about thank yous, birthdays, holiday. Those are kind of the main use cases. Prospecting to some degree, but not as much. Perhaps appointment reminders and things like that. But for the most part, it's birthday, thank you, holiday.
Right. So it sounds like really, if a person's considering your platform, they should think about sort of emotional triggers, either because there's already emotion there, or they would like to trigger an emotion, right?
Yeah.
At that point, because the person should feel a surge of emotion when they get this
Uh,
premium card.
I'll give you one quick story. A couple years ago, we had a client. It was a mattress, one of the mattress in a box companies,
Yeah.
and we were sending them lots of these really cool cards that have like doodles on them, and it was like, we hope you enjoy your first night's sleep on the mattress, blah 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 blah. And then they stopped, and we reached out to them. We said, why are you not doing this anymore? They said, oh, those were when we were a small company and we wanted to appear personal and appear small. Now that we're a big company, we don't need to do that anymore. And I was dumbfounded, and I thought,
Right.
God, I don't know what to say to that. I mean, you always want to appeal on a personal level. My understanding is you'd always want to appeal on a personal level, and they said, no, that's not important anymore. So it was kind of an interesting experience there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, when you want to kind of connect on an emotional level with your client, that's really what this is about. And in a day and age of we're again getting back to kind of, in a day and age of abundance, I should say, there's so much of everything. You should be thankful that somebody chose you.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Great. Well, it's great learning about your business and getting me thinking about the importance of thanking, in general, right? We're all blessed in our lives all the time, and our businesses are blessed by our customers giving us their business, right? And
Yeah.
we should,
At the
thank the
very
people
least,
for that.
I joke. I say that Hallmark, the slogan for Hallmark is when it's good enough to send the very best, because you're going to sit down and write a Hallmark card, right? Handwritten is when it's almost good enough to send the very best. And I think you need to start.
Right?
It's not about are you going to send a handwritten note. It's
Yeah,
about which handwritten notes are actually going to be written and which one you're going to use a service to do. Because I think everybody deserves some level of gratitude. Your best clients, your best donors, whatever, they deserve real. And then everybody else, maybe you can scale it a little bit. But that's my
it is really interesting, and I want to cover one more thing. I've noticed that newer generations, they're not even teaching. There's not an emphasis on handwriting at school anymore. So it's almost becoming like the Sanskrit of
I know.
communication, right? And I don't know where the pendulum will end up resolving on that, but it seemed like now that even the person, like, my handwriting's horrible, so I can't even write a handwritten note if I wanted to. But I mean, for newer generations, their handwriting may be bad. It may be like almost an arcane skill. But I
Yeah.
do think that there's still something to it, at least for a few more generations, where people can
Yeah.
say, like, I get it, this was written.
Yeah. One of our longest standing clients it's for the hipster. It is a vinyl record subscription, and their target is a 20-something-year-old kid, and they get these vinyl records in a box, and with those boxes is a handwritten note from us. And we see those handwritten notes up on Instagram and Twitter. Because it's so unique, people find some retro appeal to it.
Interesting,
And
yeah.
the average business person receives 124 emails a day. They spend 25% of their time managing their inbox, something like that. There's those stats all over the internet. Then you receive and send thousands of text messages a month, rather, thousands a month, but you only get about 3 handwritten notes a month. So it's like, where do you want to be in that stack of 3 per month, or do you want to be in that stack of 150 a day? So that's kind of why it appeals to the younger generation, is because it's different, and
Yeah,
and also I feel like we're getting a little sensory deprivation when everything is online. It's nice to hold something and feel it,
for sure. Yeah, I think
so
direct mail is having a bit of a resurgence as a result of that, right? It's
yeah,
tactile,
yeah,
and it conveys the even with a non-handwritten note, right? It
yeah.
conveys that the person was important enough to send a mail piece to, right?
Especially
So,
when postage is going up to 72 cents or whatever it is.
yeah,
It's
like,
crazy.
please, let's not think about it.
I know.
Well, thanks so much for joining me, David. I'll look forward to keeping up with your continued advancement.
Thanks, Kevin. Really pleasure meeting you. Actually, I'm honored you took the time. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.